One thing that popped into my head, which didn't even strike me as that much of an issue at the time, but when I published my board game, I started off with printed 10,000 copies of this game. They arrived at my house in a 40-foot container, and we started selling this game worldwide. And I'd really kind of reached out to lots of reviewers, and it began to get these reviews, and I began to win these awards. And in doing that, kind of word spread around the world without actually doing any kind of paid marketing. It was all kind of word of mouth. And I very quickly, I got this introduction from this guy in Germany, and he wanted to make a German version of this game. So I was totally flattered. Didn't really think too much to drill into who he was or what he was able to do, but he was, wanted to get us to sign a 2-year contract for Germany. He wanted us to fly to Germany to this Essen trade fair, which is like the biggest game fair in the world. If you haven't been, it's crazy. Like 500,000 people go to this every year. It's just nuts. And so I was like, okay, great. We'll come to Essen. We produced 100 copies of the game. We translated into German for the event. We had them rushed there, great expense from the factory in China. Blah, blah, blah. And we were there at the trade show, and we sold out. I relearned to speak German and French while I was at the event. I sold all these games. And then come the end of the trade show, the guy just disappeared. Like, he was still in business, but he never actually placed an order, whether it's for a German game. So here I was having a game that was selling well all around the world in different languages, winning all sorts of awards. I couldn't enter the German marketplace because this guy was our exclusive distributor. And it took 2 years for that contract to lapse. And at the end of that period, we actually managed to get we got an amazing distributor in Germany, who then helped us go on and win the Spiel des Jahres prize. Basically, it's like the Oscar for board games. And so it's just, and it's so funny because in this day and age with Deckable, people kind of talk to me about exclusivity of contracts and all these restrictions. And it comes down to, I didn't even think about the restriction because it wasn't a restriction, because I was thinking in terms of abundance. I wasn't just thinking about Germany. I was thinking about all the possibilities for this game. And, it was an impediment, but actually at the end of the day, it's kind of a shocking story, but it really kind of helped. So that was one of my kind of fuck up stories, to be blocked out of a major market. The biggest gaming market, Germany is the biggest gaming market in the world, and be blocked out for 2 years. And then a funny one was, I basically did a software exit to BusinessObjects. We built this product that's all based around Venn diagrams and asking really complex business questions. And we got all the way to this negotiation where we were going to do a stock swap. And they said, have you done any previous transactions with your stock? And we said, no. And so things went along okay. We didn't realize we'd actually offered some guy, we'd offered a guy a job. If he complied with everything, we were going to give him stock. And we didn't, because he didn't actually fulfill his end of the bargain. What we then realized was this then made our ability to do this stock swap not viable. And I can still visualize now sitting in the room and having to tell this guy from this acquiring company that we'd had this transaction. He got super angry with me for no good reason. He was the one that does M&As for breakfast every day, and I'd never done one before. And here this deal just vanished. Thin air. It came back later on, the cash deal, but that was that feeling, the drop of the cliff and the excitement like this. You could almost feel this, it touched this thing in your hands and it disappeared. And, I don't know if there was any lessons to be learned, because, I was so new to this whole idea of exit and acquisitions. And this guy was an expert, but he didn't really kind of help us in the process. But it was definitely heart-wrenching as an experience. So those were two things that struck me as kind of a learning experience of things that I've done. I mean, right now I'm working on Deckable. We launched it a year ago, and I kind of look back and think, did we launch it too soon? Was that a screw up? And the problem with software, you've always just got to cut the ties and send the kid to school on its first day, and the kid's got to get bloody knees, and it's got to go wrong, and you only get to fix the bugs because you actually see it working in real. life. You always want to hold back and protect it. But at some point, you got to drop the kid off at school and he's got to get a bloody nose and come home crying and you got to pick up the pieces. So that's been a fun experience. And we launched the product with 250 decks. We've now got 500. It gets easier and easier. But oh my God, we set off to launch the product with 100 decks, and I thought we would never make it. It's probably the hardest thing I've ever done. Just calling people up to try and, at the beginning, when I was trying to get people to give us their intellectual property, we didn't have a name, we didn't have a product, we didn't have a demo, and it was, but we made it. Like we got through that journey. It got easier and easier, but it was fun. But it is just, you just have to be fearless, and you just have to not take the no's. The no's don't mean what they mean. It doesn't mean no. They just mean not now. And I remember going back through the list of the first 6 people that I spoke to, and we actually closed all of those. They didn't say yes straight away, but when I went back and looked, it's like, wow, that was pretty impressive. But you just have to like be bulletproof because they're going to get a lot of no's. So those were just, a few random thoughts I had on it. It was another big one actually, where we basically, years before this, we built this CRM product. And at one point we had to refund £85,000 worth of software. This was like 25 years ago. That was a lot of cash today. And it just gutted us because we had this amazing product. And a year later, I think we saw Sage, who is like the biggest accounting firm in the UK. They did an acquisition, and they'd previously been to our sales demo, and our product was so good that it was just buggy as hell. And that could have been our exit, but that exit was what inspired me to do the things I did later. Was realizing that someone can do an exit for X million dollars. Oh, wow, I didn't know that. You don't come from that world. You have no clue that it exists. So it was a blessing in disguise that I learned that this had happened. It could have been us, but it wasn't. We got to have another shot at it later. Yeah, that was my summary of my stories, I think.
Questions to Nick?
I've got one for you, Nick. Maybe it ties in with what Andrew was saying as well around. A lot of this seems to be that you go into entrepreneurship because you've got an idea, you've got a thing that you want to do. Frank's taking this passion for something from his past and mixing it in with something else and going off and looking at different markets. But I don't think there's ever, a lot of the stories I'm hearing anyway are that people don't think of the other stuff. It's like, as an entrepreneur, you're going to have to go to conferences and make sure you shake hands with the right people, or you're going to have to think about your stock and how you manage that from day one because it can have effects later on. Are there any things any advice you'd give in terms of, you can't learn it all and you've got to learn some lessons along the way, but are there any things that you think that entrepreneurs or people going into entrepreneurship should know from day one?
The biggest thing I think of is when I'm creating a product, I literally am creating a living thing. I actually treat it as a living thing. And yes, it's just lines of code or a website or marketing copy, but actually it has energy. The more energy I put into it, the more energy it has. When other people get excited about it, they put energy into it. And so I always want to create something that has the potential to create its own energy, so that then it does the selling of itself. It promotes itself. It spins the wheels and it does the marketing job. And we did that really. Everything I've done has had a strong element of that. I didn't know that at the time, but it just was intuitively what I did. So now I basically push. I think of it as a boulder, and I'm pushing it uphill, and it's big and heavy and it's going nowhere. But suddenly one day it's like, it'll be easier to push because it's got energy and momentum. And then I stand back from it and say, oh, look, it's moving by itself. Now, at that point, do not stop pushing. The best thing you can do at that point is keep pushing, because you've actually built momentum. You can add more momentum. But if you don't look for those signs of life, that your project is alive, you can actually back a project that you should exit from because it's dead. And do people want what you're looking for? And if they're not bouncing up and down with energy from the idea, your idea is wrong, or the way you're pitching it is wrong. At that point, don't keep going. Change either the idea or the pitch until you get energy. Because otherwise, if you have a business that you have to pay for every lead, it's a very expensive business. Probably better businesses to go and pay, right? And so I always look for things that have the potential. Word of mouth is important. I use something I love called the 1% rule. If you've not heard of it, it's really, really important. And the 1% goes, 1% of people create, 9% of people contribute and comment around the creator, and 90% of people are lurkers, the silent majority. They just watch. And I use that because I know that if I can see signs of the 9%, I know that there's 10x to 100x around that haven't done anything yet. And I have to entice them out of the shadows to come and join in on the project. So the 1% rule is and the kind of it's a living thing mentality. I mean, I always look I have a model for everything. I refuse to do anything without a model. And if I can't find a model, I'll make one, a mental model for how I'm doing it. But then as I do it, I get better at it because I tweak the model. If you don't have a model, you're just shooting blind and you're like rolling random dice every day, doing different things. But like my 1% rule is a model and I just apply to what I'm doing. My it's a living thing is a model that I try and use. So those are the things that keep me inspired and sort of checking in for signs of life. And
if I can add to that, Nick, to you, Paul, I mean, there are some lessons. I'm an entrepreneur now for 22 years, coming from a big corporate, stepping into entrepreneurial life 20 years ago. And I knew it when I was 16 that I wanted to become an entrepreneur, but it took me 24 years later to become one. There is no easy road. You have to work for it. If you become an entrepreneur and think that it's easy money and things will come rolling in, or you pay for leads, or you think it's, let's say, an easy road, forget it. You're fooling yourself. I mean, it's dedication, it's belief in yourself without becoming arrogant, because there's a very thin line between believing in yourself, feel confident, and becoming very arrogant. But in the end, for me, and it makes me very happy, it's hard work 7 days a week. So it's more a lifestyle than it is a job. And that's what I would say to everybody who thinks, oh, I want to become an entrepreneur. Well, it should fit your lifestyle. If not, please don't become an entrepreneur, because you will be so disappointed, frustrated, whatever.
Agree.
And alone. And alone as well. Sometimes
True.
alone. I just wanted to add that because there's a lot to do and you have to do a lot alone.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right, Frank.
And also getting used to the idea you'll never get it. You'll never be done.
Yeah.
Never end the day where everything's done. There are things that are going to fall off the list, and that's okay. And I just love the idea. I think of it as a game. I'm playing one big game. I'm moving pieces around the board. I'm planning the strategy, right?
Yeah.
And getting other people involved is a real skill, right? When other people get involved, you've suddenly got a tribe, an army, a community. They're going to support you and help you.
Yeah.
Someone once said to me, "Oh yeah, get a tribe of people who just will determine that you will never fail, right? Because the people are surrounding yourself with people who will stop you, save you from failing. That's going to be the biggest asset you can have."
True. There's a nice connotation with mountaineering. I'm a high altitude mountaineer already since I'm 23. So of course you can work out, you can keep your physical condition in shape. Your equipment is important. You know how to read climate and mountains, etc., etc. But the interesting thing is if you master as good as possible yourself and you pick your mountains you want to conquer, I mean, the help will come by itself. Because I climbed in the Himalaya, and then, without real professional Sherpas, you won't make it. But there is a kind of what you give, yourself and how convinced you are of what you can bring. And if it's genuine, other people will recognize it and they will offer you, listen, now I can help you. You need me. And if that's genuine, I mean, you connect and it's very easy, but it's also, let's say, a lesson in life that you become more and more experienced and also accepting help when it's offered to you from a genuine person. And that's something you really have to recognize because there are always gold diggers around you, specifically when you become a little bit more successful. But there are, let's say, half of the people at least is genuine, really wanting to help you without, let's say, a bill they send you afterwards, because they just like to help you. And keep an open eye for those people, because those are the ones you connect with for life, at least in my experience. They will stay your so-called business friends. I haven't seen Jens for a year, I think now. The last time we drank coffee somewhere in a shitty hole in Holland, because he moved over to Holland, from crying out loud, from Spain. Can you imagine? You go to that rainy, dark Holland.
Yeah.
But it will stay a connection forever. And it's not the frequency, it's just the intent from somebody you feel.